Hello, guys and gals, me Mutahar, and boy oh boy, cheaters really do ruin everything, don't they? Now, ladies and gentlemen, in the last couple days, console gaming has had some rather sad setbacks, okay? Now, to start off with, I'm going to be really nice here. PlayStation, you know, people always say, Muta, do you just love PlayStation? No, I don't. I made several videos calling them out for bad behavior. One thing that I don't like is recently they released the PlayStation 5 digital disc drive, which basically you can kind of like Sega 32X. You remember the old Sega 32X? Remember the Sega CD? Remember when you had to like jerry-rig a console with another product? Yeah, PlayStation 5 has a digital product where if you want to have physical disc drives, you can buy like an $80 separate thing and just slide that shit right onto the system. The thing is, internet connection required to pair disk drive and PS5 console upon setup. Now, there's been a few people who have raised up some serious concerns. Whoa, can you really preserve something that needs to connect to an internet server? No, you can't, because once the server's gone, that hardware becomes e-waste. And for an entire industry that wants to make me feel bad about green energy and all that shit, why is it that we are so consistent on producing ready-made e-waste all the time? Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, this is kind of somewhat related to a U.S. copyright situation, Section 1201, where they actually say it's unlawful to circumvent technological measures used to prevent unauthorized access to copyrighted works. For those of you who don't know, gaming console discs, even if they have the complete game on them, are locked to the brim with DRM and encrypted formats. And you typically need, official Blu-ray drives, disc drives, to decrypt that information. This is designed in a way so that, you have to marry a drive to a console, just so you can't plug in a unlicensed drive and start decrypting information, from my assessment, okay? Not that I'm okay with it. I still think Sony is somewhat in the wrong, and I'm going to stick to my guns on that one. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Xbox recently had something wild yesterday. This message started popping up for the Xbox gamers all over. A connected accessory is not authorized. Using unauthorized accessories compromises your gaming experience. For this reason, the unauthorized accessory will be blocked for use on 12/11/2023. For help returning it, you better check with the store, idiot. So again, a lot of people started freaking out because apparently their cheat devices started getting caught. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to show you a device that I think is probably the hell pit of most gamers on consoles, okay? Most gamers in general. You may never heard of what a Zim is. Ladies and gentlemen, a Zim looks much like this device right here. So what happens is you plug in a keyboard and mouse to this device, and then you connect it to your Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, whatever, and it registers as a controller. Now, this is predominantly used as a cheat device. I know that there's going to be people like, but Muta, I use this for keyboard and mice on my Xbox. My response is buy a fucking PC if that's the case. Because in reality, most people buying this dog shit of a product are using it to cheat on competitive games. So Microsoft has decided to throw the baby out with the bathwater and actually enforce some regulations on what devices are running on their systems. Now, this is obviously pretty bad for people who are in the fighting games community. One group, such as the Brooks Gaming fans, have literally said that some of their products, like the Wingman XB2 converter, the fighting boards, some steering wheel adapters, are actually going to not work with these systems. Now, obviously, they can go with Microsoft certification, which they're absolutely working with people on, but it's obviously an inconvenience that some are going to hurt from. So if you're part of the fighting game community, well, you just got slapped across the face. Do you want to buy a cheaper steering wheel to play some Forza Motorsport? No. You better go get your ass to Best Buy and you better spend some console gaming money on that device right there. So in reality, these scumbags from Zim are the reason that we have to pay a little bit extra for our official products. Now, if you actually look at their website, what's so transparent about it is they absolutely only show games that are multiplayer, okay? So games like Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, which I'm surprised more than 8 people played that game online. Single player was great. Zombies in Spaceland was awesome. The multiplayer is about as exciting as a lice infection. And of course, you've got Overwatch. Again, why are you advertising Overwatch? The entire community watches porn of Overwatch rather than play the game. Of course, you've got Battlefield and whatnot. Nowhere in this situation did they show a single-player game, that you could play with a keyboard and mouse. Because it's so obvious this company is designed to create products that literally will give advantages to console players against other console players. And this isn't brand new or anything. This has been going on since the Xbox 360 days, where they literally have footage of them playing Modern Warfare 2 on the Xbox 360 with keyboard and mice. So you might be wondering, how is this a cheat, Muda? You're still playing the game. It's not like there's an aimbot. Most console games and PC games have crossplay, and they have input-based crossplay, meaning that if you load up a controller, even on a PC, you are playing with other controller users. So most of them are probably going to be on consoles. Now, if you play with a keyboard and mouse, you're going to be playing with other people that have keyboards and mices. So what these cheating scumbags do is they basically play in controller lobbies with keyboard and mice controls. Now, controllers have aim assist, and in some cases, like Call of Duty, they have some pretty nasty aim assist that might as well be called an aim bot in some cases. But if you got a keyboard and mouse, you could be as brain dead as anything. You could be as dead as a doornail and still reach champion rank on Rainbow Six Siege with consoles. And for Rainbow Six Siege, that's a game that very much is built upon the millisecond to millisecond combat. So if you're playing on controller, where again, people are obviously not as fast and quick to snap to the head as they are on keyboard and mouse, in that specific game, the disadvantage that you have against one of these players is so high that it may as well be a completely, it may as well just be a cheat device right there and then. And from what I understand, from what I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but even with Siege, Ubisoft has actually added in specific detection mechanisms for these players. And I believe what they do is they add input lag into the game just to counter it. But the point is, it's like, if you're playing a competitive game online, you obviously don't want to go up against any of these scumbags, because then what's the point? Especially when your MMR is on the line and all that extra nonsense. And it goes for not just this game, but other titles too. Games like Halo, Call of Duty even, right? Which arguably, that's the one community that's the happiest. The fighting game guys, they're worried about the future. The COD guys, they're excited because they don't have to deal with these scumbags anymore. There's another company, another group known as the Cronus Group, who produces something known as the Cronus Sense. So this little device right here, you plug in a keyboard and mouse, and you plug in an official Xbox or PlayStation controller, and you basically emulate a controller with the added precision of a keyboard and mouse. The problem here is, even when you look into their actual website, it's actually really disgusting because they straight up make it sound like an actual cheating tool. I mean, you are talking, they've got macros for anti-recoil, aim assist, rapid fire, drop shotting, so on and so forth. The anti-recoil is probably the worst. So again, no game is allowing this, and most game developers have actual checks in the game now. I know Fortnite does, to fight against devices like this. Microsoft has just made a hardware level change that has basically thrown the baby out with the bathwater. And again, I understand why Microsoft does this, because obviously they have to make the playing field somewhat, easy. They have to make the playing field leveled. You can't just blatantly allow cheaters on the platform. So while I don't necessarily agree with it, and I do consider what they've done anti-consumerist, that said, I get why they're doing it. And in some cases, this is actually a benefit for people who are competitive gamers on these platforms. But of course, it doesn't really end over there too. Cheaters have caused anti-cheat software that I hate with a passion to ruin my experience on gaming. Now, for those of you who don't know, I've been a Linux gamer for years now. Way back with that meme video I made where, that goofy looking face of me, the video where I showed people how to make a gaming virtual machine as part of a virus investigations video, that entire, ever since then, I have predominantly been a person that games underneath Linux. Now, there's been a bit of condescension for people like, why would you play video games on Linux? Why can't you just use Windows, Muda? Because I don't fucking like Microsoft, okay? Because I don't really like having proprietary software from them basically running on my metal, okay? I don't really approve of it. And with how Microsoft is going by constantly inducing more telemetry, more AI bullshit into their operating system, I don't really want it, okay? I use Linux. The only time I ever use Windows is virtualizing underneath Linux to play a game or two that has like a very, very specific technology. This year has been one of the greatest years for video gaming. And in terms of single-player gaming, I have been able to play every single release underneath Linux basically on day one. You know, a year or two ago, you couldn't even claim that. But in most cases, playing games like Resident Evil 4 Remake, playing games like Cyberpunk 2077, Alan Wake 2 underneath Linux, even Starfield that I had a little bit of an issue with, work absolutely flawless underneath Linux. Because of Valve, because of a lot of companies who are basically building the best compatibility layers on the market, gaming underneath Linux, at least for single player, is pretty much on par with like Windows at this point. I actually don't even need Windows unless if it's for a specific game or two. Even with games like Cyberpunk 2077, which recently I actually finished in a virtual machine, again, this is because a technology called DLSS frame generation is currently locked to Windows in the NVIDIA driver. Otherwise, the ray tracing, all of these benefits that the game has, these technologies, are actually functional entirely in Linux. And even if there are some issues, the community is very helpful and the fixes are, again, in my opinion, not that difficult to do. But generally, it has become mostly a drag and drop plug and play experience, at least in the single player side. Multiplayer, not so much. And those games are multiplayer games. Anti-cheats are so bad that one game that I wanted to play with my friends called The Finals, which is currently in a playtest, unfortunately I can't play. Because the anti-cheat on it doesn't even work underneath Linux at this moment in time, even though it takes Epic Games, or easy anti-cheat, like 5 seconds to enable a toggle that'll let me play the game underneath Linux. Not really possible. It's definitely not on their command. They don't really care about it, so it's not a game that I can play. I tried running it in a virtual machine, and even then, it errored out and told me, you're playing in a virtual machine. Now, if you don't know, a lot of anti-cheats have become kernel anti-cheats, meaning that the amount of invasiveness they've had on your system is insane. We are talking they are sitting with root-level privileges on your devices, even in certain cases where the game isn't even running, which already is shady. It's a really bad attack surface to have, and it's goddamn creepy. But the fact that it exists is just a showcase of how bad the hacking situation has gone. Look, I hate anti-cheat. I don't blame developers for putting it in. Even with that game, The Finals, which is currently in beta, has an actual campaign against it by cheaters right now, developing cheats, running it through the game, and ruining the experience for nearly everybody involved. It's because of cheaters that I'm not able to play this game underneath a virtual machine or through Linux, okay? There is just a dedicated campaign against that game, and of course, even big titles like Call of Duty, like Rainbow Six Siege, which I used to play day in and day out. I don't, because it doesn't work on my computer anymore. BattleEye doesn't really care about, helping people like me out. They don't care. I'm always a dirty cheater in their eyes, and now, according to Easy Anti-Cheat, I am too. It's only going to be a matter of time before even Blizzard steps up their Ricochet anti-cheat and just starts banning VM users as well too. Which at that moment in time, I have no reason to play those games. As far as multiplayer titles on Linux go, there are only 3 titles that come to the top of my head. Apex Legends, which actually toggled on its anti-cheat for Linux, big deal. You've got systems like Halo Infinite, which now work underneath Linux, and of course Counter-Strike 2, and that's because it's owned by Valve. See, ladies and gentlemen, even with things like the Steam Deck, the Linux market share is just a percent, if that. And it's not a sizable enough percentage of people on Linux for developers to even give a shit about, but hopefully that number grows. Ladies and gentlemen, hackers are slowly ruining almost every single thing about video games, and they've been doing it for years. So if you ever wonder, man, why is it that these big companies are throwing the baby out with the bathwater? It's literally because of hacking scumbags like this. Hackers are the reason why you're not allowed to have your third-party fight stick that might be a little bit cheaper on Xboxes, because these people exist solely for the reason of ruining your online experience. There are entire games like Escape from Tarkov that are just completely unplayable. There are single-player mods for that game that I would recommend just because like 70% to 90% of that gaming community is just rife with cheaters at this moment in time. There are PC games that I can't play because the anti-cheats are so invasive, they don't function underneath Linux anyways, and there's no good reason for them not to. Ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mutahar, and yeah, cheaters just ruin everything, man. And honestly, it's not going to get better. But to be fair with you, I've mostly been a single-player game, and this year has just been a big boon for it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mutahar, and yeah, shit sucks. I am out.